Today we will take a look at a thriller short film. The target mouse is from the hands of the Pacific Rim director. The content is not terrifying, but it is more exciting, and friends who like thrillers must not miss it. In the cemetery in the middle of the night, two little furry thieves dug up a freshly buried grave, greedily stared at the funeral goods on the corpse. They took all these belongings, and were about to be happy. At first, the cemetery caretaker Lao Kiao suddenly appeared with a gun and arrested them. After the fur thief returned the property, old Kiao righteously denounced the fur thief's theft, and then shot them away by shooting them in the sky. But don't think that this old Joe is a good man, only to see him suddenly jump off the grave and start the act of self-theft. He took out a pair of tongs and put it in his mouth, and he pounded it very skillfully. Subsequently, a gold tooth was pulled out, but the golden tooth just arrived in hand for a second. Who knew that one did not hold it steadily, and fell back into the coffin? Old Kiao could only reach for it again, and suddenly the next second, old Joe's hand was bitten out of blood. It turned out to be a one-eyed mouse that did it because the purpose of the rat infestation was rampant, so that there were rats in the grave. Old Joe was just about to take a gun and shoot, but the rat ran away in ashes. But strangely, even the gold tooth disappeared. Then old Kiao could only take the rest of the finance to pay off his usury gambling debt, but he didn't expect that without the most valuable golden tooth, the remaining finance was simply not enough to repay the interest. Super the underworld predators pressed on step by step, and old Joe hurriedly explained that the purpose was to spread the rat infestation. Some of the corpses were dragged away by rats before he could do anything, but the creditor did not care about these warnings. Lao Kiao did not pay the debt in time, so he let him lie in the coffin forever. So frightened that old Kiao immediately knocked on the morgue opened by the same party the next morning, and it happened that several corpses came today, and old Kiao hurriedly went up and opened his mouth, see if there is oil and water to fish. It is a pity that these people are all ordinary people, and there are no big gold teeth in their mouths. He opened the curtains of the VIP seat, and finally found a gold lord father, hurriedly knocked on his mouth and looked. And to try it, the rich merchant's wife asked him to go decently, saying that he would accompany the priceless sword given by the king with him. Who knew that old Kiao's eyes were full of dread after hearing it. If he could dig out the sword, he would not have to worry about it for the rest of his life. As everyone knows, his nightmare also unfolded. Afterwards, she returned home happily and lay in bed fantasizing about the future. At this time, some dust suddenly fell from the ceiling, and old Kiao took off her glasses to look up, and found that there was a tail on the ceiling. So she reached out curiously to pull it. A mouse was pulled out, and old Joe looked at the ceiling and a terrifying scene happened. Fortunately, it was just a nightmare, but it still scared the laird half to death. The next day, the rich man was buried, and the sky-high price of healthcare was also used as a funeral item, and old Joe had to dig it out to pay off his usury. So the rich man just entered the soil during the day, and was secretly dug up by old Kiao at night, because the purpose of the rat infestation is rampant. He must start as soon as possible. As a result, I opened the coffin and took a look. The corpse is being dragged away by the rat swarm. Looking at the corpse and the sword that are slowly dragged away, Lao Kiao suddenly thinks that he can't afford to pay usury, and the picture of being locked up in a coffin by the underworld war immediately emboldens himself to get onto the rat hole and start a thrilling adventure. Because the rat hole was very narrow, old Kiao couldn't catch up with him and quickened his pace, and he was poked in the eye by a tree root without paying attention, when there was a sudden noise behind him, and a large wave of rats was swarming towards him. In the small rat hole, old Joe couldn't hide at all. The huge rat immediately crawled all over the body, fortunately brought a pistol, and quickly took it out to scare off the water bear, but he didn't hit his toe, and for a while the pain made him squeak. Seeing this, the one-eyed mouse that had bitten him at the beginning stopped to laugh at old Kiao, raised his hand and shot it, but the noisy sound on this side also woke up the sleeping mutant rat king, so frightened that old Kiao quickly hid back. And when he looked again, he found that the king of Shu had left. Due to staying underground all year round, the Rat King's eyes have degenerated and can only smell old Joe. Taking advantage of this opportunity, old Kiao secretly took a gun and slammed 2 shots at the Rat King. In a panic, the pistol fell to the ground, but old Kiao did not dare to reduce it, so he could only continue to run for his life. The king of Shu quickly chased after him, but as a result, old Kiao fell deeper without paying attention. This is the wreckage of the rat group. The dragged corpses are all here. Old Kiao was so frightened that his soul came out, but there are also a lot of funeral goods here, and the sky-high healthcare was also discovered by old Kiao, and suddenly hell became heaven. Old Kiao got up and looked around carefully. It's more like an underground temple of some cult, and the statue is like a Cthulhu monster, strange and terrifying. It was a dry corpse, and the cultists attracted old Joe's attention, and the solid gold necklace on his chest filled his eyes with greed. Who knew that as soon as he took it down, the dry corpse suddenly came back to life and grabbed old Kiao to death. During the dispute, old Kiao tore off half of his wet and dry body, but dry and wet still had to snatch back the necklace. Under the old bridge, he picked up his sword and ran out of the temple, but the Rat King was also waiting outside. Kiao has a mutant rat queen with a terrifying dry corpse. and at this time, the old bridge is forced into a corner, and he plucks up the courage to pick up the sword on the ground and aim it at the water in front of him. As a result, the breeze was pushed down by the Rat King in just 2 seconds. Just when his life was hanging by a thread, the old bridge suddenly pulled the roots of the tree, and a boulder fell from above, directly smashing the Rat King, and at the same time blocking the dry and wet of the pursuit. And the form suddenly became clear. Then old Kiao picked up the flashlight and shone it up, and there was a ray of sunlight at the end of the cave. And after many hardships, he finally survived this wave of gold miners. Fortunately, when he got closer, he found that it was not sunlight at all, but a flashlight shining on himself on the coffin plaque. This is getting into someone else's coffin. At this time, the rats also ran over and got old Kiao as a burial attendant. As soon as the picture turned, 2 little fur thieves came to rob the tomb again, but found old Kiao lying inside, just about to take the necklace on his body. The little fur thief was scared away on the spot, and old Joe also paid the price for his greed. This concludes the film.